Wednesday from 4 till 7 on TalkTV.
Yes, today's question, by the way, is how worried are you about artificial intelligence, particularly regarding your job and also about the next generation? Do you have children? Are you worried that they're not going to be able to find jobs, that the jobs are going to be taken away from them, the jobs that at the moment they've got their hearts set on, that actually those jobs are not going to exist in the future because they'll be taken over by, well, let's not put too fine a point on it, robots. Robots are taking over, are they? That's the question. 0344 499 1000. Obviously, you can talk to us about anything else as well, because we're talking about a number of things. The text number is 87222, and you text talk first before actually making your point. And of course, there's Twitter and everywhere else. Yes, let's move on. This is another story which is not going away. This is about the number of bank branches that are going. Actually, it's not just about banks. It's about services on the high street. Since January 2015, which is, by my rudimentary maths, 8 years, in the last 8 years, a total of 5,579 bank branches have closed. So nigh on 6,000 have closed in the UK, and more people are going online. The thing is, this is affecting the elderly and the vulnerable in the communities who actually like to go and deal with these things face to face. The people who don't have regular or easy access, perhaps, to the internet, perhaps can't use the internet for various reasons, and so they can't reach these vital services. Well, personal finance expert and CEO of Fair Money is Dr. Roger Gewolb, sorry. Try again, if at first you don't succeed. Good morning to you. Sorry for mangling your surname there.
That's all right. Good morning, Penny.
Good morning. So, yes, this is the problem is, funnily enough, even I have a checking account. I actually have a checkbook and an account because there's one particular bank that makes it so difficult to do online banking that every time I do it, I get locked out of it, and I've just gone, hands up, at least that. But my bank still has a presence on the high street. Now, if that does decide to go, then I will be forced to go online. But the problem is there are lots of people who just, for various reasons, can't.
Well, I don't think it's just people who aren't computer literate or elderly or can't use the internet. I mean, there are a lot of cash businesses around. I mean, and they're not necessarily people who are avoiding tax. They're just people that trade a lot with cash. We're moving towards a situation where we're going to become more and more cashless, Penny. This week, the Bank of England magnificently doubled down its blunder record by announcing it's going to introduce Britcoin. Now, that sounds like Bitcoin, but that's nothing to do with cryptocurrency. It's simply a digital payment method, as if we don't already have enough payment methods around. This will be a substitute for cash, which a lot of people are concerned will give banks and the government even more scrutiny over everything we're doing than they already have. But putting that aside, Mervyn King, the former governor of the Bank of England, called it quote, a solution in search of a problem. I mean, we don't really need it, but the Bank of England is always doing strange things, like all the multiple interest rates we've had that we didn't need and shouldn't have had, which have done nothing to curb inflation or protect the dollar. Now, by the end of a year or so, the figure you had is actually, we're going to be down to 1,000 branches in the country. And all of this is just a magnificent mixture of government and banks acting together, gaslighting us about how wonderful things are, while actually making quite a mess of things. We are going to have banking hubs, which is that branches will be closed, and in each town there will be a hub with all the branches of the different banks. Wait for it. I see your face. But
no, I tell you what. Yeah, okay, go on then. Tell me the end of this, and I'll just say
it's going to be run by the post office.
Right. Well, this sounds remarkably like the way that, do you remember when police the big police stations started to be shut, and they said, what we're going to do is excuse me, we're going to shut the police stations. We're going to have a police presence. They'll be in your local supermarkets. They'll be in your local. You'll be able to access. Did they? Have they? Where are they?
No.
And the same. And the feeling that I have about this is, these things sound great, and then they either don't happen or they happen at the beginning, and then they just drift away, because for them it's so much easier if it's online. I mean, the amount of times that you want to have a conversation. It's not just in banking, it's everything. I mean, I'm dealing with an insurance claim at the moment. It would have been so easy if I could have phoned somebody and said, this, and this, can I send you the documents? Whereas I've now had 2.5 months of emails, and then an email comes back 2 weeks later saying, sorry, can you send this document now? And then I send the document, and then they say 2 weeks later, we need this now. And everything is now expanding and expanding and expanding. But I couldn't get hold of them.
You're absolutely right. But one tip I can give you and our viewers is that if you hunt far enough, you'll actually find a telephone number for customer service for almost every big online retailer and service provider. You just have to keep looking.
Oh, no. I did try to phone, but after 30 minutes of listening to the appalling music and somebody saying that my call was important, but that it was much easier to go online, and then they would give me at least, so in that 30 minutes, I had the email address spouted on, and I thought, really, I've got to get on with my life. I can't just wait where there is a signal so that I can actually. So that's why they do it.
I know, it's terrible. And then of course, they're spending all their money on advertising, telling us they're our friends and they're with us for. I mean, I love the herds of wild horses following young girls through their local park is a bit unsettling, I must say. And at the end of that,
you mean that particular advert? Sorry, that was quite. Yes, the advert.
At the end of that ad, I don't know what we're supposed to do. They don't. I mean, they don't say go into a branch or. But this hub thing is very worrying because, of course, the post office is in deep trouble itself.
It's having issues,
service-wise.
Yeah.
They've got strikes. And then, of course, these hubs, I imagine, will be run by the same lovely people that ran sub-post offices who were treated so abysmally by the post office.
They were treated
Many of their
poorly.
cases are still unsettled.
Yeah.
Are they gonna rush forward to take jobs? Now, the important thing is, Penny, that this has not been passed yet. We're still waiting for regulations and legislation from the government authorizing these hubs. But the banks have jumped the gun and started closing branches in anticipation of this happening.
Now, just for people who are listening to this and thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? Really, what can people do to actually take control? Particularly because I think the other problem as well is that we fear, or certainly the people I've talked to who say that they don't do internet banking, not because, like me, they're clueless and keep on putting in the wrong numbers or whatever else, but because of the fact that they worry that they're going to be, that scammers are going to take their money. It was so much easier in the days when you had money, you took it out, you paid for things, you saw how much money you had left, and all the rest of it. Now, you're constantly having to try and find out how much you've got. There's, things go out, you don't see them. You've got a card that you can just tap, and money goes out. You don't see anything happening, and you worry that somebody else might get their hands on it because of the fact that you've accidentally let slip something. For all those reasons, is there any other way of actually looking after your money and being able to access it without reverting to the old-fashioned way of sticking it under your mattress or in a sock?
Well, I think if you have a sufficient amount of money, and I'm not going to go into how much that is because it varies, there are still old-line family-run banks in the city that operate to a large extent in the traditional manner. I'm not going to name names, but I mean, they're quite well known. And if you go to them, they are not going to treat you the same way. There'll always be someone to speak to personally because they, of course, cater to the rich.
Right.
So You need a certain amount. I don't think you need to be mega wealthy. The other thing I would say is that at least keep some of your money in a possibly local, but at least smaller, friendly building society, because they seem not to be going the same way.
Yes, I mean, naming one particular one, Nationwide Building Society, for example, which is still quite present. Renee, just nodding away.
I actually went to a Nationwide branch last week.
Did you indeed?
And I don't go to bank branches very often.
Did you?
I have to say they were superb.
Yes, good, excellent service with the Nationwide. It sounded like an advert. But you're right, there are building societies which are still around and which have said quite categorically they are not going anywhere.
Well, how long the big ones will be able to resist the temptation of having their own herd of animals in the park somewhere, I don't know. But the smaller ones, the local ones, the Partick Thistle Building Society or something, they're not in a position to embrace this new world quite as actively. So you'd be pretty safe. But I really would, given the experience of sub-post offices and how terribly those poor people were treated by a computer glitch that put them in jail and accused them of dishonesty, and now 12 years later, the post office is kind of saying, I'm sorry, while it's also running out of money, striking, and generally delivering not a great service. I mean, I really feel for the post people.
So do I.
It must be tough for them to run. I mean, it's one
I always
thing
think one should give them a big smile as they're delivering the post and say thank you.
Oh, no, they're the
called Dave.
They're the salt of the earth.
Renee's postman's called Dave.
We send each other Christmas cards.
My goodness.
That's great, Renee.
Excellent.
But they are the salt
I'll
of the
investigate a bit further on that.
They are the salt of the earth. But it's one thing handing Dr. Renee and you a letter and a parcel. It's another thing running your bank account, for goodness sake.
Yes, there are two different things. We've had a message from Peter in London who says, I think banks should keep as many branches open as possible. Not everyone is comfortable banking online and many prefer to go to a physical branch on the high street. You see, I'm sorry, I am one of those people. I do like going to a bank. I do. I like that. I like other people helping me and saying, yes, as you...
I have no banks left in my little local area now at all. They have all gone.
Yeah.
Hence, I ended up in a Nationwide Building Society.
Well,
I mean, Peter is absolutely right there. There is no reason with the banks spending all the money on silly advertising and everything else about gaslighting us, how wonderful they are, that they can't keep one strategic branch open.
Exactly.
But it's this government hub idea, which they've jumped on. The banks are operating very much like the government does. It's full of ideas bouncing off the walls, but how workable are many of them? Generally not.
Oh, you've made me feel quite depressed now. Thank you very much, Dr. Roger.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Roger.
Sorry.
Gewolb, is that right?
Gewolb, yes.
Gewolb, well, you see, it's really easy once you've got the hang of it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Yes, I do. I like physically going in, and I quite like a natter sometimes.
And don't forget that as soon as a bank leaves a high street, then other things start to go as well, because it's the footfall that it brings. And this is what makes me sad, that it's the death of the high street, really. And